Happening now here on Channel 5's Night Side. It's election day and citizens far and wide made their way to the ballot box to exercise their God-given American right to vote.
It's important to vote because it is our right to vote, and if we don't exercise those rights, we lose them.
From local races to the U.S. Senate race, we've got you covered tonight. We have all the election day coverage straight ahead. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for News Channel 5 special coverage of the May 16th primary. I'm Julia Keller.
And I'm Rob LaPearl. And first up here, just to remind y'all, we'll be bringing our coverage for the next 30 minutes. You can also see those results on the bottom of your screen.
And after tonight, we will continue our coverage for elections over with a special live stream on our website and streaming apps. Just search up KLB on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV, and you can go to klb.com as well. And we start off our coverage tonight with the U.S. Senate races. And 4 Republicans are vying for the seat currently held by incumbent Senator Bill Cassidy. And we're going to go ahead and get a look at that race. Let me take you over to our election touchscreen here, where these are live results. We have here these 4 candidates. We have Bill Cassidy, the incumbent for that Senate seat. He's a licensed doctor, and he's currently coming in at about, let me pull up our thing here. We got 24% of the vote right now. He's a little farther behind, especially for an incumbent. That's not a good look. And then we have John Fleming here, a strong opposer to CCS, that's carbon capture sequestration. He's coming in right now at about 28% of the vote. That's 105,449 votes. And then we have Julia Letlow. She's the only candidate out of all 4 of these candidates here to have President Trump's endorsement and Governor Jeff Landry's. Now, she is coming in strong ahead of the pack at 45% of that total vote. That is 167,231, well ahead of John Fleming by over 60,000 and well beyond Bill Cassidy here, again, the incumbent. And then we have Mark Spencer here. He's a very farther back on that ballot list at just about 7,000. So he's not really a front runner or any runner at all in this race, sadly. And then we're going to go ahead and jump over to the Democrats. On the Democratic side of the ballot, we have Jamie Davis, a farmer. He is coming in at 47% of the Democrat ballot vote. And then behind him, we have Gary Crockett at 26%, and he is almost neck and neck with Nicholas Alvarez. Now, Alvarez is a former advisor to the former governor, John Bel Edwards of Louisiana. Now, it seems right now that Davis is going to pull ahead. It's not quite there to that 50% to eliminate a runoff, so we may end up going into a runoff once this race is called. And now a friendly reminder once again that primaries will happen on November 3rd. And as we continue to move forward here, we have, again, Nicholas Alvarez coming a little behind on Gary Crockett, again at 26%, and then Jamie Davis here at 47%. And then we're going to quickly take a jump back here to the Republican side. We're at the 93% of all votes estimated coming in. So again, it's looking like Letlow will just barely come out underneath that move to avoid a runoff. Now, again, the primaries will happen on November 3rd. Now, Bill Cassidy, he is again behind. John Fleming is ahead of him, but not by too far. And runoffs, again, for the elections will be set for December 12th. Governor Jeff Landry has postponed the U.S. House races to allow state lawmakers to redraw Louisiana's congressional map. And by November, the state will revert back to an open primary for the House races, with all candidates vying off against each other, regardless of party. And now let's take a look at the constitutional amendments that were on the ballot. Voters said no to Amendment 1, keeping the Civil Service Commission in charge of deciding which state jobs are officially protected, rather than granting that power to state lawmakers and in turn doing away with protections designed to prevent political interference. And if no, next up, Amendment 3, where voters rejected a $2,250 pay raise for Louisiana teachers and $1,125 raise for support staff. The legislator planned to dissolve 3 education trust funds to pay for the raises, and we're also going to pay down debt in the teachers' retirement fund. And Amendment 4 does not pass, keeping local governments from reducing or removing property taxes on business inventory. And lastly, voters rejected Amendment 5, keeping the minimum retirement age for our state's judges at 70.
And now let's take a look at our local races, starting with, naturally, the Pineville mayoral race.
And let's show you those numbers.
And now Joe Bishop appointed mayor after Dupree.
Former councilman, police juror Chris Campty is currently in second. Joe Bishop did win that race with 1,749 votes with 74%. And our Jay McCulley spoke with Joe Bishop, and he's currently with him right now. Let's hear a little bit there.
Hey, Julia, so I'm here with Mayor Joe Bishop. So, Mayor, how are you feeling right now? You first came into this job by appointment, but the people of Pineville, your Pineville neighbors, have chosen you to lead the city. How does that make you feel tonight?
Thank you. I want to thank the citizens of City of Pineville, but first off, I want to thank our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ first, okay, and my family. And I want to thank the voters of Pineville, but I keep saying Refuge Parish because I come from the police area, okay? The parish is always my heart, okay? But Pineville is my home, okay? Thank you for believing in me and trusting in me and letting me move Pineville forward in a positive manner in the next 4 years.
And so you've been mayor for... Yes. We're live, you guys. So really quickly, you've been mayor for about 1.5 years, so I know you're going to continue with the stuff that you've been doing, but now that you have a full term, what are you looking forward to accomplish?
Oh, we're looking at developing Central State Hospital and several other areas here in Pineville and stuff. Look what we've done with Main Street in Pineville, King's Country and everything. We have more business coming to Pineville. We have Lou and Laura's, we have Buckets, we have several other restaurants that's already knocking on our doors. And I want to thank all of my supporters and stuff like that, my endorsements by the district attorney, the Sheriff Mark Wood, Philip Turrell, Lieutenant Governor, and everybody else. Also, Mayor Fields, okay? Thank you for your support and believing in me.
Got you. All right, congratulations, Mayor. It's a pleasure having you on News Channel 5. All right, Julia, Rob, I'm going to send things back to y'all in the studio.
Thanks, Jay, and congratulations to Mayor Joe Bishop.
Yeah, and it seems people that were chanting "Go Joe" are going home happy. But now let's take a look at who will fill out the Pineville City Council seats. And we're going to start off with District 1, where the race was between Greg Allen, Dan Udy Jr., and Randy O'Neill. And it's coming up that Greg Aaron, the Democrat, is going to win out that vote with 57% of voters.
And in District 3, the race was between Hugh Halley and Peter Ford. Halley won with 261 votes at 68%.
And then over in District 4, the race was between John Marquez and Celeste Mobley. John Marquez is, of course, swinging out with 353 votes.
And finally, in District 5, the race was between 3 candidates, Mark A. Meters, Tom Murphy, and Samantha Stanley. It looks like Mark Mertens is going into a runoff with Samantha Stanley, 349 votes for Mertens and 264 for Stanley.
And people across not just Cenla, but across the state were at the polls earlier today to cast their ballots. And we were at the Keys Park Community Center over in Pineville as voters exercised their American rights. And across the state, there are nearly 3 million registered voters, and we're still waiting on numbers from the Secretary of State's office to see how much participation was exactly there in this election. Here's what one local voter had to say on why she thinks voting is so important.
Because it's our privilege to be able to vote. We want our voices heard. Not everybody's afforded the right to vote. And we just all need to get out there and do it. And maybe it'll make a change in this great economy that we're in right now.
Now let's take a look at some other mayoral races across central Louisiana, starting with DeRidder. Michael Harris is ahead of the pack, winning this race with... Excuse us for 1 second. It looks like Leesville. There we go. The DeRidder mayor is Michael Harris. He's going to have it with 1,386 votes and with the 54% currently in.
And ignoring that hiccup now to the seat of Vernon Parish, the city of Leesville, my old stomping grounds. 4 candidates were vying for that coveted title as mayor of Leesville. And out of those 4 candidates, 3 were Democrats and 1 was listed as no party. That's Lewis Hopkins. Now, not a single Republican entered the race. And Mr. James Jim Shapkoff secured 223 votes. That's about 29%. And LaFonda Stelly securing in 34% of the votes. Now, these 2 will now be heading into a runoff.
And over to Marksville, Carl Chapman versus John Lemoyne. Chapman is going to get the win with 689 votes with 54%.
And we've now called the mayoral race over in Colfax. Tamika Hamilton Price is taking away the title with 55% of the vote. Price sent in this video to us after the race was called in her favor.
I appreciate you for trusting me. So now it's time to get the ball rolling to the next phase. We're moving Colfax forward, and we're uniting our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And nothing but congratulations to the new mayor. And Von Galice is the winner of the Montgomery mayor with 76 votes, which is 57%. And in the town of New Llano, Carlton Todd has come ahead with 343 votes at 84%.
And over in the village of Natchez, Monique Sarpy is taking away this race at 89 votes. That's just over 50% at 53%. And welcome back. We're continuing our election coverage with more on the U.S. Senate race. Here's the latest numbers. Now, U.S. Representative Julia Letlow has secured her spot in the June runoff. She will face either John Fleming or Bill Cassidy. We'll see how those numbers shake out the rest of the night, although right now Fleming is ahead of Cassidy. But here's what Representative Letlow had to say in the past 30 minutes from down in Baton Rouge.
Thank you, Louisiana! I am so excited, and most importantly, I want to say thank you to a very special man who you all know, the best president this country has ever had, President Donald Trump. When he endorsed me in January, I knew this was going to be a tough race, but tonight Louisiana sent a clear message.
Now let's see the latest numbers with the Democrats running for U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate Democratic race, Jamie Davis is currently in the lead with 146,649 votes. That is 48%. In second is currently Gary Crockett at 81,372 votes, which is 26%. And looking over at Franklin Parish, incumbent Mayor Alice Wallace has won re-election. A lot of people were watching this race because Wallace was recently arrested for government benefits fraud.
And back over in Rapides Parish, voters have rejected a 0.5% property tax over the next 10 years for Road District 2C. Now, this was anticipated to generate about $2.8 million each year to maintain and repair all public roads, highways, and bridges.
And voters in Rapides Fire Protection District 4 said yes to a 0.15% property tax to provide local fire departments with about $1.3 million per year for the next decade.
And then over in Avoyles Parish, a measure to establish a new home rule charter has been overwhelmingly shot down by voters. Now, Avoyles Parish has been trying to get to since 2009 and would have changed their form of government from a police jury to a parish-wide council and a parish president.
And now to the police chief race in Bunkie. Brandon Horton is going to lose to Brian Juneau with 605 votes. He would get the 69%.
And over with the Public Service Commission for District 5, that includes Catahoula, Natchitoches, Sabine, and Wynn parishes. We have now called this race with John Atkins beating out Aiden Joyner.
And on the Democratic side, voters picked James Edward Green as their candidate over Austin Lawson.
And this next vote was actually on the ballot last May as well, where it failed by just 25 votes. The measure looks to collect almost $1 million each year for the next 10 years through a 15.72 mills property tax. So it's a 0.1572% property tax. And residents once again rejected that measure, denying about $1 million in annual funding for the parish sheriff's office.
And the second parish-wide measure in Catahoula was accepted by voters, agreeing to a 0.015% property tax for the Catahoula Parish School District. That's less than 2 pennies for every $1,000 of property value and brings in just under $100,000 for the district.
And then over in Allen Parish in Oakdale, it's Kevin Cavell versus Kevin Johnson, who's running to replace Webster D. Chamberlain, who was appointed to the office after former Chief Chad Doyle was arrested back in 2025. That's in connection to the federal investigation into massive immigration fraud here in central Louisiana. Now, Doyle stepped down shortly after being named in the indictment, and Kevin Johnson will now take up the chief's badge.
And in Evangeline Parish, a property tax for the parish library system fails. The mileage was expected to bring in about $1.7 million for the library each year for the next 15 years.